The three clowns are back.
We're back. We're back for episode 31 of the No Punches Pulled podcast. Jay's Fight Talk making reference to some lovely person last night describing us as clowns, which, look, got to take it as a compliment. I'm sure
looking for my red nose. I'll have one somewhere.
Probably definitely not the probably not the first either. But yeah, as our good friend Luca described the show, the 31st episode of Boxing Therapy is back. We've got Mikaela Mayer, Sandy Ryan rematch to be. In fact, a week of the rematches. Zepeda and Farmer are running it back too. We've got Pat Brown's debut, Vong and Flynn. Plenty to crack on with this week, boys. Evening to DJ Pat, the main man. Hope you're well. We go again indeed, Pat. Love it. Thanks.
Good evening, brother. Good evening.
My friend. So yeah, boys, we'll do that. We'll have a little chinwag if anything crops up in either of our minds about what's going on in the world of the sport, as we always do. But let's just get straight into
glasses.
Quite a few fights to preview this week. Let's start in Altrincham on Friday. We'll go in chronological order. We've got Pat Brown's professional debut. He's had a late change of opponent. He's fighting the Argentine now. Grandoni, I believe his name is. Same sort of thing as the other guy, Brzezinski. I think the guy's name was his Menafite. Just a guy who's been stopped a few times. Pat's going to deal with him in a round or so. But the one that's caught our attention, the one that we're definitely most interested in on the card, we gave our predictions for it last night. Cameron Vong and Jordan Flynn. Big up to Dave at Ropedo. Top man, mate. Evening to yourself, sir.
Listen to that podcast if you haven't. Get it.
Yes, the review show with Liam last night. Listened to a good portion of it this morning. So yeah,
the best one's from 3 weeks ago when I was on it. But no.
Well, yeah, we don't mention it. Well, so yeah, Vong and Flynn, boys. It's the best fight on Friday night, isn't it? By a country mile.
I didn't say now.
It's the best fight on that card. Absolutely. It's a blessing because
I've got to get my door. Sorry, boys.
You're all right.
On next gen shows, you don't often get 50-50s. So the fact that we've got a genuine 50-50 on a next gen card with lots of jeopardy is a blessing, and will probably save our Friday night. I mean, Mark Dickinson's going for the English title, which has the potential to be an interesting dust up, but the main talking point is this one. As we said last night, whether we're clowns or not, Cameron Vong has some questions to answer after Gavin win. How much does he want it? How much is he willing to adapt his style in the fight and sort of come through the fire? And if you're Jordan Flynn, your mouth's got you into this fight, and then you got injured and pulled out 2 or 3 times. This is your moment, really, isn't it? If you do all the talk you've been doing and then lose to Cameron Vong, you're not going to be getting an opportunity like this again for a while. So it's put up or shut up time for Jordan Flynn, in my opinion. And for Cameron Vong, it's time to prove that he is ready for the next step, or does his apprenticeship need to be elongated?
Yeah, definitely. I'm on board with that. Obviously, it's been on and off a couple of times, this one, but I think we're there now for Friday night. DJ Pat's got Vong on a decision. I think I tend to agree with you, Pat. I know the boys have gone the other way. I think one thing we can all agree on, though, it's going to be close. I'm looking forward to the presser. I watched a bit of their face-off thing that they did with Darren Barker on the Matchroom channel. They're putting the big push behind this one. Seems like every fight's got a face-off now. I'm not so sure this one requires one, but I understand why. There is good narrative behind the fight. So, looking forward to it. Obviously, we'll watch it on Friday night. The score will be settled for good. Pat Brown's had a big push, Liam. It's his pro debut in Altrincham on Friday. Irrespective of the opponent, headlining on your pro debut is not something we see a whole amount, is it? So Matchroom and Eddie's certainly putting the push behind him. He's got Nigel Travis, Jamie Moore training him. He's got Sam Jones managing him. He's got kind of the whole squad behind him, hasn't he? He's got a lot of backing.
Yeah, look, I'll live up to my Oracle tag, as Dave in the chat likes to refer it to me as. And the last 2 times that a debutant for Matchroom headlines were both from the 2012 Olympics. Luke Campbell headlines at a stadium in Hull, and AJ headlines at the O2. But in general, the last time was Joe Joyce when he fought Ian Lewinson, if you remember, when he first turned up. But
Sorry about that.
The big thing there is Joe Joyce, Anthony Joshua, Luke Campbell were all Olympic medalists. Pat Brown, although he was a very good amateur, and we know he's been on Matchroom's radar for a while, he lost his first fight in the Olympic Games. He didn't come home with a medal. So it's kind of, I understand why he's being given the big push. They see potential there, but
Billy Joe Saunders did similar, didn't he?
Yeah, there's a risk. There's a risk attached to it. He hasn't come out of the Olympic Games with a medal. He hasn't got that pedigree to him. Look, good luck to him. I think a last minute change for an opponent, all it does is maybe throw a few doubts in there when you study tape on a fight. I still think it will be over inside 2 or 3 rounds. It's an 8-round contest. But in terms of where he goes long term, I'm still on the fence about him. It'll be interesting to see where he is, how quickly they want to move him. Are they going to look to do a Joe Joyce style thing with him and move him quickly through the ranks? Or
that's what the chat is about, Liam. Definitely. Sorry, I just started laughing. I saw Pat Brown will KO this bum.
That's not very nice.
I love DJ Pat. I love him. He's a legend.
Fuck, that's why he comes on here, because he knows we don't give a shit either.
Say it how it is, Pat.
I want to see him move through quickly. I want this to be another one of those Olympians that turns over, and we know he's got potential, so he's thrown in at the deep end quicker than your standard amateur turning over. But yeah, I'm on the fence with Pat Brown. I'd love for him to become a world champion and prove me wrong, but I wonder where his level is.
Mate, it could, the build-up he's getting, like no pressure or anything. Do you know what I mean? Like
he's been billed like he won an Olympic medal. So this, unfortunate. I mean, I don't know. I've seen him as much as any of us have, and it can work one or two ways. He'll either embrace the pressure, and that's what he thrives off, and he's the guy for the big occasion, and he wants the pomp and ceremony, and he wants backing into a corner, and he'll come out, no puns intended, all guns blazing, all punches swinging, or it's going to consume him, and he's going to be anticlimactic, and he's going to stumble and bumble and it just not be what it could have been. The McCormack brothers are 2 that have come out of the Olympics. Anthony Fowler came out of the Olympics without a medal. I'm pretty sure, was Fowler the captain of the squad?
Yeah.
No, that was Tom, or was that Tom Stalker? They're different groups. I think Fowler might be captain. Tom Stalker was captain. He never medalled. If I remember rightly, Billy Joe Saunders and Frankie Gavin got sent home for nicking a pedalo, something random like that. They got sent home, didn't they, without a fight? Frankie was struggling at the weight anyway. But so not having an Olympic medal doesn't necessarily mean you can't go far. We know that, Fowler did well, Stalker did well, Gavin did well, Billy Joe Saunders is former world champion. I can't understand this massive build-up, because not many people had heard of him. And you can sell it how you want and market it how you want. Without the way they made the announcement, I thought they'd signed fucking the second coming of Canelo. The way they did the build-up, it's coming. And then, no disrespect to Pat, because I rate his skill set, but it was a bit like, oh, right, okay. The way they'd sold it, I thought they were going to bring him in for a British title fight in his debut. Yeah. The way they'd sold it, the homecoming and Manchester's red, and then, he's got his debut in Altrincham. And it's like, okay, then. Now, that might actually do him a favour that it's not a massive card that he's on. It's decent, but it's like a next-gen card, really, isn't it? I'm just undecided as what to think about him. I won't know any different after his debut, because he's expected to come in here and blast this kid out of there. I'm not going to agree with DJ Patton and say his opponent's a bum, because I believe that they'll have brought somebody in of a certain ilk. He's not going to be a world beater. He's not going to be European level. He's not going to be world class, but he'll be of a decent standard, because I think they'll want to test him now. And then after his 3rd or 4th fight, they'll throw him in for a British title. That's what they'll do with him. They'll go British, European, world. Within 10 or 12 fights, I expect Pat Brown, if he's not lost, to be challenging for some form of a world title. I believe that's how they're going to market.
There's no depth for cruiserweight anymore, to be honest with you. It could get there quite.
Well, they had what's his name on radio this morning, TalkSport.
Yes, Dave.
Who did they have this morning on? He's useless. Terramona, I'm sorry, but for me, useless.
Well, he's not for anybody. They're putting...
But I saw a lot of holes in him at weekend, falling over his feet.
He's just fighting them people in a certain style, isn't he? I think one of you
just
said
trying
it
to get him out of there, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'd like to see him in a fight. Who was on the radio, Talksport, this afternoon? Who's fighting? Was it Chev Clark that were on radio this afternoon?
Chev Clark, I think, yeah.
Or was it Vidal?
Wasn't right.
Who's the one that did the Misfits first?
Oh, Riley. Vidal Riley.
That's who was on Talksport today. And we're on about him in a world title shot, and I'm like, easy, Tiger. Do you know what I mean? But the depth, I mean, if I wasn't 50, I think I'd try turn over myself because I weigh 14 stone. Can't fight for shit like that. I could run away for long enough and eke out a points decision. But no, in all seriousness, cruiserweight is probably the easiest division. And when I say easy, I don't mean as in the opponents are easy. But as you said, Sam, the depth isn't there, so it's easier to get to titles. You don't have to go through as many. You try winning a British title at lightweight, welterweight, you've got to go through 10 other heads at British level before you even get an eliminator. Whereas at cruiserweight, if he gets the right fights, and I'm pretty sure his management team and his promotion will do this, he can manipulate his way to a British title fight within 6 or 7 fights.
I think so.
That's what I see, just because of the lack of depth.
Yeah, definitely. Right, boys, let's get on to the big one now. Big up to Clifton Dennis in the chat. Everyone on YouTube picking Mikaela Mayer. You think she shut out Sandy in the first fight. Lots of Mikaela Mayer picks. I'm going to keep my mouth shut, Clifton, because I did pick Mikaela Mayer to win.
She never boxed Sandy. She ain't boxed Sandy. She boxed a shell of Sandy that was not 100%. I don't care what anybody says, right? I have personally been attacked, right? And it fucking throws you off. I wasn't, albeit not going into a world title fight, but I couldn't think straight after. You know, imagine the adrenaline that went and the adrenaline dump that she had, the fear that she felt for that instant. You know, that could have been acid, boiling water. It could have been a whole host of things. She didn't know what were going on. She could have got maimed, killed. For her to then continue, because a lot of fighters, right, and don't get it twisted, a lot of fighters would have pulled out just on that alone. They would have pulled out and rescheduled that fight. She chose to go in. So I'm not making an excuse for her because she wouldn't make those excuses and hasn't made those excuses. And she had every right to and has every right to. All she said is, it wasn't my night. We'll do it again. And you've got to respect her for that, because I would have been, nah, I wasn't right, and this and that. She's not made no excuses. I thought she won it. I've watched it a couple of 2 or 3 times, I think. I've scored it different every time, but I believe that Sandy Ryan won it, British bias or not, because I'd like to think that I do try to watch them as objectively as possible, as unbiased as possible. I think it'll be a totally different fight at weekend. I don't think Ryan's going to chase her as much. I think she's going to box a little bit more. Not all the way through, because I think Mayer's slightly more polished in terms of outright boxing. But Ryan's got a really good jab. She can penetrate the guard with a jab. I think she'll then get in, find the spaces, and get straight back out. I'm excited for it, more so than the first one. A lot more so than the first one.
Definitely. Big up to Derek on the East Coast of America.
Yes, Derek.
As always, hope you're well. Derek, will come to you now. Liam, evening to Humble Apple Crumble as well. Hope you're well, my friend. Liam, the biggest fight for me on the weekend is the rematch between Mikaela Mayer and Sandy Ryan, just because of the narrative, really, from the first fight. If it was the first fight this weekend, maybe it wouldn't be, but it most certainly is, due to all the whether we like it or not, Paintgate and all that. I hate calling it that, Paintgate, but that's what everyone's calling it, isn't it? As Dave said, the poster is brilliant. Yeah, I do like that. But it's an open goal, Dave, too, isn't it? The poster after what happened last time. But yes, Liam, talk me through it.
Look, I think this rematch would be fighted a weekend purely off of the action we saw in the ring last time, because that was a very high-level competitive fight first time rounds. Yes, the paint incident and still the issue with Sandy Ryan taking Mikaela Mayer's trainer and all of that jazz, however you believe it, is still in the air as well. There was
she didn't take a trainer, though, did she? She took a dude out of the gym.
But that's the narrative.
That's the narrative. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. No, you're good, mate. But that's obviously the narrative they're pushing for still in the rematch. And I've seen an interview with Mikaela today where she said, look, we didn't shake hands, we didn't talk, we didn't do anything after the first fight. The beef, for me, is still as real this time round. So you've got 20 more minutes to settle it. We haven't heard anything from Sandy this time. which is nice. In the first fight, there was a lot of back and forth on social media. We haven't heard anything from her.
It's just training, man.
If Top Rank is to be believed, she's refused to do any in-camp interviews. She's given them minimal access for their behind-the-scenes stuff. So she
did one interview of IFL with her brother Dave last week.
Good on her, man. It's good on her. She's got head down, ass up, training.
Yeah, she's fully locked in, and she'll need to be locked in because Mikaela Mayer, look, regardless of whether we think she won the first fight or not, she will carry on coming on in the second half of the fight. And that's where she got back into the fight the first time round. Mikaela Mayer is one of those fighters that can look very, very ordinary for 3 or 4 rounds, but it doesn't matter what's going on in the fight. From round 5 onwards, she kicks into another gear. Her work rate goes up. Her punch selection goes up. And she stays like that until the end of the 10th round. And I think that may have surprised Sandy last time. She thought she had Mikaela Mayer figured out. She thought she was on her way to doing what she said. Mikaela then kicks into gear, and I scored it a draw in the night, and I think I've scored it similar since, one either way. It was the second half of the fight, and that's going to be the interesting thing this week. Look, security is going to be higher. It's taking place inside the Mandalay Bay, so they're just going to have to walk across the hotel. There's not going to be any waiting outside for taxis and cars and all of that, but there'll be a bigger security presence. All I hope is come the early hours of Sunday morning, we're talking about just the fight. Even if it's now 1-1 and we're getting to talk about a trilogy. I don't care about that. Just as long as we're only talking about the fight and nothing else happens during the week. That's the big thing for me in this one.
Yeah,
I agree. Can I just say something just before you do? Humble Apple Crumble, you need to change your handle. Apple Crumble is the best dessert. There's nothing humble about Apple Crumble. Rhubarb's better, but
I love how that was bothering you, Jay.
It was doing me head in.
Pat thinks Sandy's going to get the finish between 6 and 9. Derek said Sandy's got a chip on her shoulder, super locked in, and he got money on her. No American bias there. Derek, good on you.
Love that.
Sandy Ryman locked in for 6+ weeks now. Absolutely, DJ Pat. The Mad Mitch TV's in the house.
He is. There
hope
he is.
You are
yes,
well.
brother.
Paddy Leonard in the building. Hope you're well, my friend. We've got Brian Norman defending his WBO welterweight. The main and the co-main is a WBO welterweight championship fight. Look, to be honest with you, he was there or thereabouts to fight in boots, wasn't it? Then his dad allegedly...
Dad's a knobhead. His dad lost in the
Brian
fight.
Norman Sr. allegedly asked for whatever it was. It didn't happen. Look, he should win on Saturday night, boys, shouldn't he? Brian Norman Jr. But again, he's on a similar... You got Boots and Stanionis in 3 weeks' time. They're on a similar path to, in a sense of when they're fighting. So realistically, he should be pushing for the winner of that. And if not, you're just sitting on your belt, in my opinion.
I mean, it should be. But, you know, as we've said before about other high-profile boxers and world champions, the dad gets them to a certain point, and then all of a sudden the dad takes on this persona. We've even seen it over here at a lower level. You know, with Johnny Fisher's dad.
Angel Garcia was the pioneer of the dads. You remember him with Danny when he got Amir Khan, just did Amir Khan in the head before.
Yeah. And it worked for him. And look, it works to a certain degree. But then you got the likes of Bill Haney, who you'd think had trained.
Here we go. Here we go. Jay's going to get going here.
Nah, there's not to get going about because he goes on like he's a badass, talks about the streets and I'm ghetto and I'm gangster, and then he's filing a lawsuit. So you can't have it both ways. He's done it today. He's crying about, you know, speak to families of people that have lost people. Yeah, you haven't lost anyone, you knobhead. You're going on like a badass, and now you're suing your son's former opponent. So for me, Norman Jr. needs to just say, Dad, do me a favor, sit down, shut up, and let me negotiate the biggest fight of my life, because he should be fighting Boots. Shouldn't be anybody else. He should be fighting Boots. And if his dad hadn't got involved and outpriced himself, that fight would be getting made. But you see what's going to happen now? They're just going to lowball him. You can have that word, mate. You can have that. It is very fitting for Bill Haney. He is a knobhead.
Yeah, so as if I remember it now, it was a while ago when it happened, but did he not? He turned down I think it was like
$2 million.
This is all allegedly, obviously, but and something like that. And he was getting paid he had a fight when he had to pull out, injured, all the card cancer. He was getting paid $250,000 for that, and he's probably getting paid about $250,000 on Saturday night as well. Your co-main event to Mikaela Mayer and Sandy Ryan.
I think his dad just assumed they'd not say no. He's highballed, hasn't he? And thought, I do it. I'm in sales. So how much is it? I'll say 15 grand. They want to pay 12. So we then start a process, don't we? I'll say 14
now. They all think they're worth more than they 13.
Are. Exactly. But what they're doing is they're mixing up Saudi money and normal money. So what the Saudi money has done is put an unrealistic expectation on fight purses, right? So everybody now thinks there's a massive pot of money that everybody can just draw to. So if somebody approaches them, they want me. So I can now price myself out. So he started at 2 or 3 or whatever he started at, right? And they've gone in at 500 grand. So he said no, not thinking that they'd go, oh, all right then, and just moved on. Because that's exactly what happened. He was sat in a taxi doing an interview and he spoke about it publicly while they were in negotiations, and the negotiations stopped right there and they backed out and said, thanks, but no thanks. See you later. And here we are. He's fighting on the weekend, like you said, Sam, for probably 10 times less than he would have got for fighting Boots.
Yeah, he should get the job done, to be fair. Bruce Carrington on the undercard as well, as Paddy says. I do like Shushu. I'm a big fan. I think he's going to be...
I've picked him by stoppage, I think.
Yeah, I think he's going to be a world champion. There was rumours of him and Inoue fighting because Inoue was at one of his fights. Obviously, Carrington's a featherweight. Inoue's super bantam right now. But I think Shushu would be a good fight for the likes of Nick Ball. Stephen Fulton as well, as Derek has put in the comments.
Fulton got his Timberland sponsorship, didn't he?
Oh, did he?
Bless him.
Yeah, he deserved it.
Yeah, he got a deal, man, because those boots were wicked.
They were, man. He performed that.
They reached out
as well.
Yeah, they reached out. They helped him, so I'm assuming that'll be his fight kits moving forward. But well done, man. Well
Fair
done.
play to him. It was creative, though, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was fantastic.
It was. As you can see, I've got a homemade Armani hoodie. I've got a Balenciaga t-shirt on if they want to send me some kit. I've made these myself. Worth a try. Watch me get a Slazenger t-shirt from the post.
Hey, look, if Slazenger want to pay, mate.
Listen, I'm not a brand snob.
No.
I think no, you're good, mate. Anyone that wants to sponsor us will take, as we said before. But going back to Norman Jr. quickly, I think I made this analogy when I was talking with the Rope-a-Dope boys yesterday, and I don't think this is being too harsh. That for me, Boots Ennis would be a champion at 147, regardless of who's in the division. So I'm talking, the fighters that have been in the division before, I would give Boots a very good chance of beating the majority of them.
Crawford.
I'm not the top ends, but you look at Virgil Ortiz, who was also a belt holder. No. I'm not reversing at all. Whereas Brian Norman Jr. is a benefactor of the fighters such as Crawford and Ortiz Jr. moving on.
Mean. Yeah.
So you come into that, and his dad has gone and ran his mouth and got his son out of a fight with Boots Ennis by bidding too much money. But let's be realistic. They know that Boots is a level above. They know that they want to make as much money as possible because one, he's going to lose his O, and two, he's going to lose his world title. So they want to make it as much money as possible. Mm-hmm. Norman Jr. needs to win on Saturday night, and as believable as he can make it, then say, Boots, Stanionis, I'm going to be in Atlantic City, and then I want you in the summer. That's the only way. And look, if he loses like we think he will to Boots, then fair enough. But the only way he can now retrieve some of the damage that his dad's done for him is an emphatic performance against a guy that's never been 12 rounds before, that's never fought for any sort of governing body belt on any level. So that tells you where Derek Chavez is at. And then he needs to move on to a big fight. Because for me, his dad went so high with the bids because they have absolutely zero faith, if that makes sense, in him winning the fight. They know that they need to sort of compensate his son for the fact that he's given up his world title. Yeah.
It's cashing out, isn't it? And, we'd all do it. If we got an opportunity for, something big and we weren't 100% confident of succeeding, then we want to get, it's prize fighting. You want to get paid as much as possible anyway. But like you said, he's potentially going to lose his O, he's potentially going to lose his belt. He's going to lose some face after a lot of the stuff that him and his dad have said. Because let's not forget, they've said some bad shit, really, in the lead up to the fight that never happened. So, yeah, they were... We get that. It didn't look great, but it was one-off. It's he didn't look great in that one fight, but Karen turned up, and I don't think Boots did.
I think Boots has been in 2 fights that he was massive favourite in, that kind of thing. Against Stanionis, he's got a bit of jeopardy, so I think we'll see the best of Boots on April 12th, to be honest. But yeah, moving away then from that card, boys, Cancun, Mexico. You got William Zepeda on the Golden Boy show. He's rematching Tevin Farmer. Obviously, they did it in Riyadh on the Latino night in November. Very good, very close fight. Yeah, look, I said last night maybe they needed to run it back. You two weren't massively keen on it, but I think it made sense just based on the fact of who else is there for Zepeda to fight right now. Shakur's just thought it was meant to be Schofield, but it turned out to be Josh Padley. Keyshawn is fighting Edwin de los Santos, apparently. I've read that today. We'll talk about that after, maybe. Loma's still IBF champ. I believe we don't know what's going on with him. And Tank's just fought Roach. They're going to rematch. So, look, I think in a sense of where Zepeda goes, if he beats Farmer this weekend, probably Shakur, isn't it, afterwards? But Tevin Farmer's got another good payday, which is good for him. Been wrote off by a lot of people, bar Jay, heading into the first fight. Are we going to get another decent fight? Because to be honest with you, if I remember it correctly, they kind of just stood in the middle of the ring on each of his chests and just kind of had it in Riyadh, if I remember right. So
they did. But I think Farmer can afford to do that with a lot of people because he's so awkward to hit. He's southpaw. He's got the Philly shell nailed. He's probably one of the better defensive boxers, I think, that uses that really, really knows how to hide his chin. He's really slick with what he does. His movement's really awkward. He wears them stupid shorts with all the tassels on them. Yeah. No, but that helps him because you can't see anything. You can't see his feet when you stood in front of him. As soon as he moves his waist, it all goes to one side. And a few years ago, you weren't allowed to wear those. Certainly not in the amateurs anyway. You were never allowed to wear tassels because of the danger that one could come out and blind you and whatnot. But obviously that's not the case anymore. But I think Farmer, and I said this last night, and I'm not just saying this for clicks and views. I don't do that. I think Tevin Farmer's just got his number. I think he's just too slick for him, and I think he's going to turn up again. And I think we're going to have a fight very similar to last time. Very similar. But the right man will get the result this time.
I mean, it says everything you need to know kind of about how this first fight was viewed, that Zepeda's WBC interim title wasn't on the line in November. The first fight was across 10 rounds rather than 12. The WBC didn't want to even put an interim world title on the line. I mean, we know how greedy they are, so it tells you how they thought that first fight was going to go. Of course, Saturday night is 12 rounds for the interim belt. I think it was a style issue as much as anything else for Zepeda. He just couldn't seem to work out how to get inside the shoulder roll and the Philly shell of Farmer. And by the time he'd done that, it was more to do with Tevin tiring and, being on his bike more than it was to do with Zepeda had figured out the jigsaw, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I said it yesterday, and I say it again now. Zepeda can't afford a 7-5, an 8-4 kind of fight. He either needs a stoppage, which no one's done since Jose Pedraza in 2012 to Tevin Farmer, or he needs, a 12-0, a 10-2 on the scorecards. If this is close again, we'll be sitting here on Monday going, well, what have we actually learned from these two fights other than Tevin Farmer's struggles against tricky southpaws who just have a little bit of movement that don't just stand in front of him, which, look, if you can't deal with Tevin Farmer, Shakur Stevenson will absolutely school him.
Yeah,
that's the reality.
If this is anything other than a devastating performance, then he could just disappear into the doldrums of the Who Needs Him club, because on his day it's fantastic. But if he doesn't come up with a show-stopping performance, I think it just dips him down the rankings. Not physically, I'm talking about in terms of big fights. Who's going to want to fight him? Shakur ain't going to want to fight him because he brings nothing to the table in terms of excitement and fanfare. He's got to win, like you said. He's either got to stop Tevin Farmer in his tracks and TKO or knock him out, or he's got to absolutely put a beating on him and either have his corner pull him out or 12-0 him, like you said. Anything other than that will not cut the mustard, I'm afraid. It's a, I don't want to say crossroads fight, because I don't think he's at that stage now, but it certainly has massive implications on the next 12 months in his career.
Eric Gomez and Oscar have made the fight because they're like, right, people are doubting you now. Go in there and right that wrong. Yes, fair enough, you got the decision and you won last time out, but go and show everybody that was just an off night. Go and knock him out this time. You know, that's why it's been made. It's not been made, you know, through like, you know, maybe what I suggested yesterday, but I didn't mean it. Like demand. It's not like the public have gone, we need to see this, but there's nowhere else to go for Zepeda right now, and it makes sense in that regard for me. I think Collazo's on. Liam will probably know. Liam
Collazo's on the undercard.
Yeah, I don't know who else. I just
Collazo. He's fucking my age. Surely not the original Collazo. This must be different.
No. Hold on. Let me go.
Like just the minimum weight Collazo.
Right.
Just quickly, whilst we're talking about that, we know Golden Boy are very ruthless with getting rid of fighters when they stop performing. Look at what they've done to Jaime Munguia, and now Munguia's got a rematch Bruno Sucre just to keep his career alive. Zepeda, look, I'm not saying Oscar's on the verge.
Sucre.
Yeah, you know what?
Sugar, yeah.
Yeah, he's fighting. You know what I mean? But he's on the verge of at the point where Golden Boy may just decide they want to cast him aside. Oscar's shown you can get to 46-0 with him, but if you start not performing and delivering, you mess it. You know, he'll cut you aside, and that's the danger of Zepeda, because if he's not winning world titles and bringing eyeballs and money to Golden Boy, they're not going to want him, are they?
No, definitely. Yeah, there's a lot of boxing on. Derek, you are correct on Saturday. Look, boys, let's talk about a couple of topics before we wrap up. I think we've done okay in the previews. First one I want to put to you of two, potentially three. We had a bit of a debate ourselves around it during the week. Jai Opetaia, what's going on with Jai Opetaia? So he's back out. I think it's May the 12th off the top of my head. In another kind of, you know, what should we call it? He called it himself a stay busy fight. Now, obviously, the fight they want to make and they're probably going to make is the Zurdo fight, isn't it? That's the one that they want to do. The Zurdo was meant to be out soon for Golden Boy, but he's injured, I think, so he can't do it. He's got to fight Dorticos as well. He's been called as Mando for the WBA. You got Badu Jack and what's his face are fighting on this Canelo undercard, aren't they? It's on the Canelo card, isn't it?
Yeah, on the Canelo card.
Is it Rosinski or something? And so what's going on with Opetaia? Because he's frustrated. You could see it. You both probably watched the DAZN feed last week on the Cambos card. Jai was working it, wasn't he, as a pundit? I saw how frustrated he was. You boys probably saw it too. What's going on with Opetaia? Because you can't look. Let's just. I mean, I'm saying this off the top of my head. Jordan Thompson, Ellis Zorro, okay, Bradis, but Bradis retired afterwards and he went life and death with him for a second time. Who was after that? Jack Massey, was it?
Yeah.
Jack Massey and Nika last time out. And now, I can't remember the guy who was fighting's name.
It's going like that.
So since he's come to Matchroom,
instead of up. Going down.
Since he's come to Matchroom, he's done Jordan Thompson, Ellis Zorro, the Bradis rematch, Jack Massey in Yika, and now Claudio Sequo in this one.
Rubbish.
I mean,
good memory that. I called them all in a row as well.
Yeah, it's difficult to know what you're saying. I mean, the cynic in me says that Matchroom have got this contract in Australia and they need to do the 4 or 5 fight nights a year. So
piss
they're just
poor, isn't it? If we got to call it out for what it is, piss poor. He's one of the best fighters in the division.
They're running the risk of him wanting to leave them. They're running the risk of him just wanting to get out of his contract and leave, because you go with the likes of Matchroom and Eddie Earn and DAZN for the big fights. You don't go with them for shit fights. And no disrespect to his opponents, right? But Inyika wasn't ready. Jack Massey's not at that level. Thompson's not at that level. Zorro, nowhere near that level, right? No. Bradis was at that level 5 years previous to that. So he's yet to have a proper fight, as far as I'm concerned, under Matchroom. right? They're all fights and they're all boxers and they could all nail me to the canvas, but I'm not a pro boxer. I'm a 50-year-old YouTuber. Jai Opetaia is meant to be one of the best boxers of his generation within his weight division. So why aren't you putting him up against the best? Stop telling us it's coming, it's coming, it's coming, it's coming. Shite.
You just took me back referring to yourself as a 50-year-old YouTuber. That's amazing.
You said I were a YouTuber, so I'm running.
I know. I need that clipped up though. It's an amazing bit of content.
I'm not 50, by the way. I'm 48.
It is piss poor. If at the end of the day, Matchroom are doing this purely because they need to fill their prerequisite for this deal they've got in Australia, then that's even worse. I mean, look, it's been announced today that Conor Wallace is going to be back out on the cards. So just out of interest, Conor Wallace was exciting when me and you watched it in November, wasn't he, Sam? Really looks like he could, given a bit more time, he could make a good tilt at a world title. Why is he not headlining this card? Why, making his next step? Why do we need Jai Opetaia? For the name value of Jai Opetaia? I'll be really honest. I'm buzzing because it's Thursday morning boxing, but I'm not buzzing because of the opponent. That's where I am with it. Jai Opetaia fighting another opponent that looks good because he's 17-0, but actually he's only ever fought a 10-rounder once, isn't doing anything for me. I'd rather they go, look, Zerdo's injured, so we can't do that fight until August, September time. And then everyone knows where they stand and we get the fight we actually want in the summer rather than another 3 or 4 round blowout, which will look spectacular.
Things to me of milking the cash. And I think, Dave said here, Golden Boy aren't too upset about getting the Mandos out the way. Matchroom and Tasman aren't too fussed about getting the Mandos out the way. That's what it's like. We'll get every last bit that we can before we stick them in the unifications. That's what it smells like to me, Jay.
Can I say something unpopular? I think it goes against opinion. I don't think Jai Opetaia's that big of a name. I don't think he's that big of a sell worldwide.
Well, he's not worldwide. No, he probably is in Australia now. They're building the profile, but not outside of that. He's not. No.
Nah. So I think they're just milking it for what they can get out of him back home, maybe. And like this, getting mandatories out of the way, but it's getting boring now.
Yeah, as long as it happens this year, I know what Paddy's saying here about to do with to do with Jai. Like, as long as we get it this year, we can't exactly complain, can we? But and then there is this to it as well, Derek. He the way he knocked out Nika last time, that was pretty scary. So you got that too. You want compensated if you're fighting. Jai, big up, Luca. Come for your weekly boxing therapy, mate.
My dad can negotiate for me. I'll fight him.
Luca, and this is what I said, mate. I think it's more Matchroom needs to fulfill the quota in Australia.
Which is terrible form if that is the case. Terrible form using, one of your
Conor Wallace can headline this card. Conor Wallace can headline this card. Absolutely no problem.
Using one of the stars as a fill ridiculous. Is poor form. It's poor form.
Conor Wallace there, 3,500 there for that card me and Sam watched back just before Christmas, and it was bouncing, and then he had a really good fight. This fight's at that same venue, I'm pretty sure. Conor Wallace would have sold it out again, and you could have sold it as a stepping stone for Conor Wallace because he's number 2 or 3 with the IBF, if you get what I mean. Look, we're building him towards, and then we're going to try and get an eliminator later in the year. Instead, you're just getting people pissed off, and they're making this a pay-per-view again in Australia and New Zealand. $80 again to watch Jai Opetaia fight an Italian that no one's ever heard of. That's
it's pay-per-view.
Now, it's pay-per-view in Australia and New Zealand, just like in Yika.
Oh my goodness me! I mean, and Yika, they could sell that both unbeaten, both Australasian and such. But what? That is dire, mate. Dire. Payday, I want payday. I know.
We were saying that, Luca, a minute ago about his run. It's been lackluster.
One of the easiest of any of the world champions.
Jai would fight them, wouldn't he? But
no, he looked pissed when they had him on.
He was furious.
They had it.
It was awkward.
I think he said at one point, "I don't know what's going on." I think they said to him, what's going on, and he said, "I don't know." He looked pissed. It
was awkward between him and Eddie. Eddie kind of didn't know what to say because they were still next to each other.
Jamie Ward, the Matchroom presenter, looked like his arse had fallen out when Opetaia was starting to swear and really get raging. I mean, mate, you just asked the fighter that wants unifications how he feels about some Italian 34-year-old geezer coming over to fight him. He's not exactly going to be jumping for joy, is he? Just watching the colour drain out of Jamie's face as Jai's just getting more and more aggressive was quite amusing to be fair.
Yeah.
Next.
Potentially back out, boys, against De Los Santos. But just what I want to round off and finish on is just think March. This is our last podcast in March. Anyway, it'll be the 1st of April, this day next week. Do you think we're victims of February the 22nd? You know, because we all know, and everyone in the comments will probably tell us the same thing. March has felt a little bit flat, if we're being completely honest. Yes, there's been some decent, ball to Henny, flattered to deceive a little bit. This past weekend, it was again,
wasn't Crocker Donovan in March, no?
Yeah, it was the Tank. Like, it started off with good controversial. You had Feb 22nd, and the week after was Crocker Donovan and Tank Roach. And then, since then, it's kind of been a flat month. But, just putting that behind us, I guess April is and obviously the start of May as well. The next 5 weeks, I'm hoping that we're going to kind of get back on that train again.
I think we said, didn't we? We were high as kites all of that Feb 22nd fight week, even with the...
You might have been, I wasn't. How dare you insinuate that?
the late call-offs and everything else. But I think at some point, all three of us sort of said, but, after this week, we've got to wait until April for it to kick into gear again. And I do think the fact that Donovan Crocker went the way it did literally the week after, and we had the controversy in the Tank fight, if that came, say, in the middle of March, it wouldn't feel as bad. But we had 2 outstanding weeks where the fights delivered and we had lots to talk about. And I don't think it's us being, greedy or anything. It hasn't delivered this month, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no,
this month hasn't delivered. That Liverpool card, the 3 fights at the top of that, had the potential to be fantastic. Strand and Belusa, we're talking about the scorecards, and Marcus McDonnell again because he gave a knockdown when it was clearly a trip standing on the foot. Charlie Edwards done his best Forrest Gump impression for 12 rounds and then somehow tried to claim he won the fight. And then Ball and Dehenny, yes, we got another Nick Ball stoppage, but it wasn't vintage Nick Ball, if that makes sense. It wasn't as good as we saw him look in some of his performances in 24 and 23. So, no, I don't think it's us being greedy at all. All I will say is imagine if we didn't have the Saudi money in boxing. Imagine how we'd be feeling then if we hadn't had the high of Feb 22nd going into this. The new normal is a lot higher than we're expecting. And obviously we're getting more because Ring Magazine means Turkey does more cards, and we've got 2 in 2 weeks with Ben Eubank and then the Times Square one. So good times are coming, mate. I just think this is a reminder of kind of what we'll be getting served up for months on end with 4 pay-per-views a year not too long ago.
Yeah, I know. I'm with you. Pat Belfast was brilliant, to be fair. But look, just looking ahead to April, obviously you got Eubank Ben the 26th, but the undercard's very solid for that, to be fair. That'll be a good night. Whittaker Cameron, the rematch is the weekend before that, Easter Sunday. Dalton and Matchroom go the night before that. You got Frank's debut on the Zone next week, obviously headlined by Joyce and Hergovich. What else is on after that, boys? Stanionis Boots is on the week
Boots
after
Stanionis
that.
Is the 8th, yeah. So you've got, like you just said, Queensbury next week. You've got Queensbury next week. Top rank have got Torres Jr. out against the Italian guy.
Guido Vinello. Yeah, that's a decent fight.
Yeah.
Troy's on that card. Troy's fighting.
Yeah, that's next Saturday as well. So
Yeah.
you've got DAZN then into Sky for the top rank. Boots Stanionis unification. Let's be honest, the only decent fight on that Atlantic City card is Boots Stanionis. They blew the budget, didn't they? As we said when they announced the undercards.
Janabek's fighting next week as well at home in Astana.
Janabek on Sunday.
Tim Zhu next week as well.
We can work out what time that's actually going to be on.
Yeah.
I wonder if they're going to announce the Thurman fight then after Stu.
I'd say so. I think so.
That'll be an Aussie special. They'll do that on like a Wednesday night, like they were doing with Jeff Horn and stuff when he was coming up. They'll make that
Jai Opataya versus fucking another bin man on undercard. Derek, the kid that he's fighting is unbeaten, but he's very inexperienced. He's a lot younger. I think he's 11 years younger than Troy. So, and Troy's second fight at 160. So, yeah, I'm expecting him to do really well and come back with the win. But it's a tough fight, man.
I hope he does. It will maybe do a watch along for that to support Troy. Big up to the Trojan, Troy Williamson. Yes, Paddy. Hopefully, we've got more to come. But look, the next 5-6 weeks are going to be brilliant, and then even further into that, I think Taylor against Esserman in May. I'm looking forward to that. You got the Fisher Allen rematch is in May as well. So look, loads to come. I feel like we're kind of out of the lull a little bit now. I feel like we're going to be very
much
on the up. Back. Yeah, we're on the rise again in April. But I think we'll leave it there for today, boys. Carrying on with the shorter format of MPP. Massive thanks to Derek, Paddy, DJ Pat, Luca. Who else have we got here?
Humble Apple Crumble.
Humble Apple Crumble, David Ropedope, the Mad Mitch TV, Clifton, Dennis, and everybody else. If I missed any of you, I do apologize. Of course, thank you to JFT and Liam Tully. We got Liam's show tomorrow on JFT with Chilltown Boxing. That'll be a great watch. Looking forward to seeing that. I think Jane and Liam are going straight talk tomorrow night. We've got the watch along for Pat Brown on Friday, and then we got Mikaela Mayer and Sandy Ryan running it back on Saturday night. So lots to come. Take care, Pat. All the best, Paddy.
Cheers,
Derek,
boys.
thank you very much, guys, for all tuning in. And we'll see you back on Friday for the watch alongs. But don't miss Straight Talk on JFT tomorrow night if you need more of your fix. Have a great Tuesday evening, everyone. We'll see you next time.